you'll do is you'll look up at the very
Yeah, it's
top.
At the very
Up here
top
on the
there,
top,
The
that's it.
microphone at the very
You got
end,
that
you'll see a
thing.
little red glow.
It's on, Paul.
It's on.
It's on.
Yeah, it's on.
You're good.
It's on.
This has a different kind of a switch. than
Yeah, all the rest of them
It's
have
an
a,
older one.
It works.
yeah. You've got the modern microphone.
I'm old-fashioned, I guess they know that.
Okay, let's call the Board of Adjustment meeting to order. First order of business on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the January 11th meeting and 2022 and the March 9th meeting. We'll do those one at a time. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes from January 11th?
None.
If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the January 11th meeting minutes.
I so move.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? There's nobody to be opposed. Okay. Now on to the March 9th meeting. Same procedure. Any additions or changes to the minutes?
None.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to approve those.
I so move.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. So, item B, the public hearing variance is filed by the North Point Development Corporation on behalf of Brush Village 2, requests a variance to reduce the number of off-street parking spaces of 76.5 to 68 spaces, found in section 16-5-80, 1 and 2 tables 5 through 2 off-street parking requirements of the city's land use code. And announce the opening of the public hearing. So we'll start with Dale as the staff report.
Thank you, Chair. This is a application, as we stated earlier, from North Point Development Corporation on behalf of Brush Village 2. They go around and they build affordable housing units in various communities. They were able to actually obtain some CHFA money to make this happen, and so now they're wanting to move forward. And with that, we'll start on with the staff report. And so, as stated earlier, it's a petition for variance at proposed Brush Village 2, North Point Development Corporation, and it's located at the northwest corner of Mill Street and Weisbart. Commonly, you probably know it as that big open field south of Brush Village. Okay. The variance request is the variance petition, as filed by Jake Victor, North Point Development Corporation, is requesting relief from the Land Use Code to vary Code Section 16.5-80, Paragraph 1, or L, Subparagraph 2, Table 5.2, which determines how much off-street parking requirements are needed in order to reduce the requirements. But they're doing this in order to reduce the minimum required off-street parking from 77 spaces down to 68, because we can't have 76 and a half, so we have to have 77. And we'll get into this a little bit further later on, on this reduction and the purpose for it. So, as it is, the purpose for the reduction is just the number of stalls per unit from 1.5 to 1.07. Our code requires that in these types of developments, that for every unit you have to have 1.5 stalls for off-street parking. And so they would like to reduce this down to 1.07. Another reason is to allow for more open space, make it a little bit more open, put some potentially playground type equipment, open space, park types materials. And the further is to reduce the amount of empty asphalt. If they built it according to code based on their past experience, there's just going to be a lot of empty spaces sitting out there in that parking lot, which of course means now more construction costs, more maintenance, more ability for somebody to park abandoned vehicles or junked vehicles there, and so it just kind of brings us down a little bit. So the attachments to this various requests are obviously going to be Exhibit A, which is going to be our land use application form, which you should have all these in your packet. Exhibit B is their receipt of $200 variance fee. Title C, or Exhibit C is title commitment, purchase agreement, and they're being designated as the authorized agent for the Brush Village 2 project. Exhibit D is the variance request. Exhibit E is a site plan, and keep in mind that that site plan is just conceptual at this point. It is not final. However, it just gives you an idea. If they had to build out to the size that code wanted, plus a little bit extra, then that's what we're looking at. There's just a lot of parking spaces. There should be a map, yes? There we go. Okay, so that's just the site plan. We're not looking at the site plan proper. It's just there to give you an idea of the proportion of parking to actual building space itself. Exhibit F should be what was sent to the publication to the newspaper. Exhibit G is a list of the mailers 300 feet around the property. Exhibit H is the mailer letter. Exhibit I is the poster of public notice. Exhibit J is a picture of the posted public notice, and these were posted at 2 spots on either corner of Mill and Weisbart. And we have a location map of the proposed Brush Village 2, and Exhibit L, which is the parking calculations, which we will get into just a little bit further later on. Public notice. All requirements from Section 16.3-30 have been met. The 15-day notice. The public notice was published in the Brush News Tribune on May 4th, 2022, and May 11th, 2022. Letters were mailed to 9 property owners who are within 300 feet of the property, and posted signs were placed on the applicant's property on May 3rd of 2022. The variance criteria in Section 16.2-40H3D states that under no circumstances shall a variance be granted on the sole basis of personal convenience, profit, or special privilege to the applicant. In order to demonstrate that, Section 16.2-40H3C allows variance may be granted when the Board of Adjustment finds that all of the following conditions exist. One is that the peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties or an unnecessary or unreasonable hardship will be imposed on the property owner if the provisions of this chapter are strictly enforced. In this case, the applicant states in the event that this variance is not granted, the site will be significantly overparked, decrease the attractiveness of the overall development. If this variance is not approved, it may also result in a denial of funding for the development from the Colorado Housing Finance Authority, and the project may not move forward. Applicant has been involved with hundreds of these affordable housing developments throughout the state of Colorado, and the calculations being provided are based on the combined experience of all of these project team members. And you will find that in Exhibit L, and we'll go over that shortly. Number 2, the circumstances creating the hardship were created through no fault of the appellant. The applicant has stated the code does not account for the number of bedrooms, instead of looking at the number of dwelling units. And that's how our code is written, is that based on the number of dwelling units, you gotta have 1.5 versus the number of bedrooms that you would have for people that would live there that would have additional vehicles and such. Applicant's calculation look at the number of bedrooms per unit and the income restriction that will be placed on each unit. Both of these factors have historically served as strong predictors of what the parking requirement for an affordable housing development will be. With the majority of units being 1 bedroom, applicant site would be significantly overparked, which will result in less green space and amenity space for the community. Number 3, that the property for which the variance is requested possesses exceptional narrowness, shallowness, shape, or topography, or another extraordinary and exceptional situation or condition which does not occur generally in other properties in the same district. The applicant has stated that this applicant has stated this property does possess some conditions which others in the area do not. Applicant has been required to design around both the existing retention pond as well as the neighboring parcel and the irrigation ditch that goes through the site along the southern side of the southern property line. Number 4, the variance will not substantially or permanently injure the appropriate use of adjacent conforming properties in the same district. The applicant has stated the variance will not impact adjacent uses. It will reduce the amount of asphalt shown on the attached site plan and improve the character of the neighborhood. A current site plan that meets the full code is attached. Applicant's request will increase open space provided and reduce the amount of empty asphalt the applicant is currently projecting on the site. Number 5, that the variance, if granted, will not diminish the value, use, or enjoyment of the adjacent neighborhood properties, nor curtail desirable light, air, and open space in the neighborhood, nor change the character of the neighborhood. The applicant has stated the variance is for the reduction of parking stalls provided, and that's all we're really looking at right now at this point. And so there will be no impact on the value, use, enjoyment of adjacent properties. The reduction in parking will result in increased light, air, and open space in the neighborhood and improve the character of the neighborhood by taking up less space with asphalt. That the variance, number 6, that the variance will not alter the essential character of the district in which the property for which the exemption is sought is located. The applicant has stated the reduction of parking will result in increase of light, air, open space in the neighborhood and improve the character of the neighborhood by taking up less space with asphalt. Number 7, that the variance will not weaken the general purpose of this chapter or the regulations established herein for the specific district. The applicant has stated the variance will not weaken the general purposes of the code or regulations for the specific zoning district, as this is a unique income-restricted property. No new similar properties have been developed in Brush since the 1990s, and therefore the request will not be applicable to many multifamily developments. Number 8, that the variance will be in harmony with the spirit and the purposes of this chapter. The applicant has stated the variance will be in harmony with the spirit and purposes of the code, as the code was established to ensure that multifamily properties provide adequate parking for their residents. Applicant still fully intends on doing that, but the code goes far beyond what is necessary for the proposed Brush Village 2. Number 9, that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. The applicant has stated that the variance will not adversely cause any public health, safety, or welfare issues. Okay, so now the code also states that the applicant bears the burden of demonstrating that the applicable standards above have been met, and that's from section 16.2-40-H4G. And so we're looking at the relevant code sections, which is section 16.580 L2, table 5.2, off-street parking requirements. Dwelling units, multifamily, 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit plus 1 space for visitors per 5 dwelling units. Zoning, the subject property is zoned residential medium-high density, section 16.4-10, paragraph 6 of the city land use code states, the purpose of the residential medium-high density district is to provide a zoning district within which both townhouses and apartments can utilize areas of the city for higher density uses. So the discussion here is the applicant is seeking relief from the land use code, section 16.580, table 5.2, the off-street parking requirements, in order to reduce the minimum required off-street parking from 77 spaces to 68 spaces. Brush Village 2 is comprised of 45 1- and 2-bedroom units targeted towards low-income individuals and has a total of 68 bedrooms. Applicant has communicated that due to the tenant income restrictions on eligibility for low-income housing, this demographic typically does not own multiple vehicles, if at all, such as fixed income seniors. Applicant states that they have developed over 1,200 units of housing, with approximately 800 of those units of housing in rural areas. This has led the applicant to utilize an alternative formula to calculate the number of parking stalls per unit. And so Exhibit L shows the parking space formula to calculate the number of spaces based on percent of county median income and the number of bedrooms in the unit. The code requirement of 1 parking space per 5 units for visitor parking is still being required. So we're not waiving that at all. So when we look at your Exhibit L, you'll see that there's a quick spreadsheet that says that they're going to have 45 units The stalls required based on code for the units would be 67.5. Stalls required would be 9 for a total of 76.5, obviously 77. And so that brings the stalls per unit up to 1.70. So when we look at what is being proposed is there is going to be, as far as one-bedroom units, there's going to be 5. And of those 5, you have to be at 30% or below the county median income to qualify in order to rent that particular unit. And that means that they would need a total of 2 stalls. Also, when you look at the one-bedroom, if you're at 50% of the median income, county median income, then they're looking at 10 units, and they would need 8.2 parking stalls, and so forth and so on. If you meet 60% of the county median income, they'll have 14 of those units. So that's still pretty generous, but it's still right around close to that $32,000 a year income bracket. And so that means that they would need 14 units for that, so it's a 1-to-1. Likewise, they have only 16 two-bedroom units, and so at 30% of the county's median income, they would need 3.2. 50%, they'd need 6.32. If you're at 60% of the county median income, there would still need to be 14.4 parking stalls. So add it all up, comes up to 48. You add the 9 guest parking stalls, it's 57. However, they recognize that there will be a need of more than just 57. That would be the bare minimum based on their calculations, and they are asking for 68 at this point. And so, the surrounding area, the subject property, currently known as Brush Commons, is located just north of Mill Street and the Brush Secondary Campus and south of Brush Village. You should see exhibit, I think I have that wrong, exhibit location map. My apologies. I read it several times, I didn't see that. So the location map would be Exhibit K. The property is zoned residential medium-high density, and so the conclusions are, if the board finds that the applicant has not met the 9 applicable standards from section 16240H3C for a variance, staff recommends the variance be denied. Alternatively, if the board finds the applicant has met the 9 applicable standards from section 16240H3C for a variance, staff recommends the variance to the code section 16580 L2, Table 5.2, be granted to allow for 68 parking stalls instead of 77 parking stalls with the following conditions. Should the 68 parking stalls prove not to be sufficient, applicant will be required to increase the number of parking stalls to accommodate the additional needs. And that is the end of my staff report. And so with that, applicant is not present at this time. He was asking whether or not he needed to be present, but as it sits, this is not very complicated in what we're doing. We're just reducing the number of parking stalls that is going to be required for this more affordable housing type project. And typically, based on their experience in the past, you don't need that much parking. Having this, and also being able to reduce parking allows them to site their building actually further away from the brush lateral ditch. So there's also an additional benefit by not having to do a lot of paving in that means. So, and it also increased the amount of, like I say, activity space as well as open space and such. So, and with that, that is my staff report.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
I know the applicant's not present, but what about public testimony? I see we have,
And I would like to comment, there's sometimes a microphone there at that stand, and tonight there is not one. And, oh, it's up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
That and my dad always threatened to take my tonsils out because I speak too loud.
No, you weren't
No.
speaking too loudly. I was actually leaning forward a bit too. Luckily, I could follow along in the
Yeah.
paperwork, but you weren't too loud at all.
Okay.
So other people, when you're speaking, please help me out by making sure you talk loud enough. Or else, I guess that can't be pulled down anymore.
probably not.
In any case,
Yeah.
It'll be okay, but
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to public testimony. Please introduce yourself by your first and last name and where you live.
Sure. My name is Bart Ginther. I live at 25545 Highway 34, Brush. And I'm here tonight just representing the Upper Platte Beaver Ditch Company, which is the brush lateral that goes on the south
Yeah.
edge of this deal. And Dale, you can clarify. I'm just wanting to make sure we don't run into the same fiasco that we ran into in the city of Fort Morgan where our ditch went by, well, it's called Riverview Commons now.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a
Yeah.
nightmare. This looks like, on the map,
Yes, and again, I would like to point out, this is what I stated earlier, I don't know if you were here for that, but this was conceptual, and they know that this will not happen.
okay?
This is not their final design. They started off that way, and it's like, no, you cannot build that way.
So, just to make sure I'm right, this is what's already here.
Correct.
And this is what's gonna go in,
Correct.
it's this.
Is this, but this is gonna be up here. It's not gonna be there. We've had this discussion with the developer many times, and it's very clear. And it's made very clear to him that that's not going to happen.
And if I remember right, the
30
ditch.
feet from center.
The ditch is open to right about here, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's underground
Correct.
from there on. So that doesn't worry me too much, but this up in here looks like, the way this colored map is, it's coming down even into the ditch.
Right, yeah,
That's the
again.
property line or something?
No, this is that one parcel that is currently a stormwater pond. They're
Oh,
gonna be
okay, yeah.
recontouring the
You're
stormwater
talking about
pond
the
and make
ditch
that an
that
open
runs through,
space.
and that's not
Probably
part of our
move most things
discussion.
up this way here
And
as
it
well.
doesn't show on
And
this
so,
map.
it will not encroach upon the ditch in any way, shape, or form, and I've made that very clear to them, that you will stay 30 feet away from the center
No,
line.
it's, where's the retention?
I think that's all I need, is just a little reassurance, so,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. Did you have,
Nope,
you're just an observer?
just here to observe Dale.
You'll see him next week.
Yep,
Okay.
you get me on June 2nd.
Does anybody have any, do you have any questions? Paul, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, no.
Okay. Then, I think, did you have something else to add, Dale?
No, I'm here for the final questions.
Okay.
If you have any final questions,
No, I don't
I'm here to
think-
answer them.
no.
I'm just kind of representing Jake Victor a little bit, because like he said, he would be here tonight, but we thought this would be fairly simple enough to
Well, and
present.
it's just
that
about the parking, it's not.
It's just about parking.
Yeah, and I understand that I drove by a couple of other places that have housing, not just here, but in Fort Morgan, that, to see. And there's a lot of course, maybe it's because of the time I drove but if it's gonna be senior, I really don't, I understand where he's coming from, but I don't think it's gonna be like overparked. So, and then he said that he would, if it was, I guess how would we determine that? If it ends up being overparked, how would we?
That would come from police reports, complaints from other residents there, but again, this will be this apartment building would be administered by an authority, and so if somebody was
Like
to
a
park
housing
2 or
authority.
3 vehicles there, and of course, one's got the license plate half hanging off, and it hasn't started in 3 months, it's just like, look, you need to get this out of here, and so there will be some control by the association or the Brush Housing Authority on having their vehicles there. But if for some reason, and it is always possible, if 68 is not sufficient enough, one of the conditions of this variance is we can make them go back in and put more parking in, if that's the case. But the intent is not to have excess asphalt parking open up. Again, it just leaves it open for people to leave abandoned vehicles there, work on their vehicles there. That's not going to be allowed, those types of things.
Well, and as I understand it, it's gonna be mostly senior that lives there.
It'll be all demographics, it'll be all ages. And so it could be the single mom with the 2 children that's got a minimum wage job somewhere, and they just might walk there. It's hard, so.
Okay, great, thank you for your comments.
Is it the intent of the developer to have numbered spots for corresponding units?
I didn't get that. However, the ADA requirements still apply. So they will have their ADA requirements up close. However, I don't know that they're gonna have numbered spots. I can get that clarification and get back with you on that.
Could I ask a quick question? Dale, realizing that this is really just about the parking
Yes.
spaces, when a final design comes, will there be another hearing?
You will be noticed. I don't know that there will be another hearing. However, you will be noticed.
Okay.
That way, I insist that the brush lateral be involved. Yes.
I would imagine the only reason we'd have another hearing is if it's something that doesn't meet code.
Oh, gotcha.
Right. And this is just about variance from code.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we ready to make a decision? So I guess I would entertain a motion to approve the variance.
Well, I move that we approve the variance with the added provision here that if 68 parking stalls are not sufficient, the applicant would be required to increase the number of parking stalls to accommodate additional needs.
And may be responsible for the expense, too.
Well,
Yes.
yes, I mean,
Maybe that's,
yes, and be responsible for the expense involved in that.
okay,
I'll second that motion.
okay. That's, all those in favor?
I-
Any opposed? Okay, so we're done then.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Dale.
Thank you. It's my first one. I hope it didn't butcher it too bad.
No.
so.
Thank you for your interest.
Oh, you bet. Thank you.
All right, do we have to adjourn, or did you?
Yeah, let's see,
You can just announce that we're adjourned.
huh?
You can just announce that you've adjourned the meeting.
Oh, okay, so now we'll close the public hearing. We've already done the motion second for the voice vote, and we have no unfinished business, so now, the chair announces now that the meeting is now adjourned.
Thank
I
you.
forgot to read the back of the page.